There are people all around us who answer every painful question with the same two words: I'm fine. Even when their voice sounds tired, even when their smile feels forced, even when their entire world is quietly falling apart, they still say, I'm fine. But here's the truth most people never realize. The people who say, I'm fine the most are often hiding the deepest emotional pain. Because sometimes I'm fine is not an answer, it's a defense mechanism. Psychologists call this emotional masking, when someone hides their real emotions to protect themselves from judgment, rejection, or vulnerability. Over time, this habit becomes automatic. They stop expressing what they truly feel, even to the people closest to them. And usually this behavior doesn't start in adulthood. It starts much earlier. Many people who constantly hide their emotions grew up in environments where emotional expression felt unsafe. Maybe they were told, stop crying. You're too sensitive. Be strong. Or maybe nobody listened when they tried to explain their feelings, so their brain slowly learned something dangerous. Showing emotions leads to pain, and once the mind learns that lesson, it adapts. Instead of asking for help, they stay silent. Instead of opening up, they smile. Instead of saying, I'm hurting, they say, I'm fine. Not because they're okay, but because hiding feels safer than being vulnerable. What's strange is that these people often become the strongest looking individuals in the room. They become the helper, the listener, the calm friend, the person everyone depends on. Because focusing on other people's problems distracts them from facing their own emotional wounds. But carrying hidden pain every single day is exhausting. Imagine pretending to be emotionally okay while your mind is constantly overwhelmed. Imagine laughing in public but feeling empty in private. Imagine wanting someone to notice your pain, while also fearing anyone getting too close. That internal conflict slowly drains a person emotionally. And many people who always say, I'm fine, are secretly terrified of becoming a burden. They believe things like, no one really cares. Everyone has their own problems. I should handle this alone. So they minimize their pain instead of expressing it. But emotions don't disappear just because they're ignored. Suppressed sadness becomes emotional numbness. Hidden stress becomes anxiety. Unspoken loneliness slowly becomes isolation. The human mind was never designed to carry endless emotional pressure alone. And yet, millions of people do exactly that every day. What makes this even more heartbreaking is that society often rewards emotional suppression. People admire those who never complain. They praise people for staying strong. But nobody asks what it costs to constantly appear okay. Because behind many calm faces are invisible battles. The friend who always jokes around may secretly cry at night. The person helping everyone else may feel emotionally empty inside. The quiet person saying, I'm fine, may actually be fighting a war in their own mind. And the longer someone hides their emotions, the harder it becomes to express them naturally. Eventually, they stop knowing how to explain what they feel. That's why some people suddenly become emotionally distant. Not because they don't care, but because they've spent years disconnecting from their own emotions just to survive. And honestly, one of the saddest feelings in the world is emotional loneliness. It's when you're surrounded by people, yet nobody truly knows how much pain you carry inside. The scary part is that many silent sufferers become so good at pretending that nobody notices anything is wrong until they completely break down. People say, I had no idea they were struggling. But the signs were always there. The forced smile, the fake positivity, the constant, I'm okay, the habit of avoiding deep conversations. Sometimes the people who look the strongest are simply the ones who got used to suffering in silence. The problem with hiding pain for too long is that eventually the mask starts becoming heavier than the emotions themselves. At first, saying, I'm fine feels harmless. It feels easier, safer, more convenient than explaining everything going on inside your mind. But over time, something dangerous begins to happen. The person slowly disconnects from their real emotions. They become so focused on looking okay for everyone else that they stop checking on themselves. They learn how to function, but forget how to feel. And this creates a life that looks normal on the outside but feels emotionally empty on the inside. Psychologists often say that emotional suppression doesn't erase pain, it delays it. The emotions stay buried quietly in the subconscious mind, waiting for a moment of weakness, stress, or exhaustion to rise back to the surface. That's why many people suddenly break down over small things. A simple argument, a stressful day, one disappointment, one lonely night. And suddenly, years of hidden emotions come crashing out at once. Not because they're weak, but because nobody can emotionally carry everything forever. Many people who constantly say, "I'm fine," are actually experiencing emotional burnout without realizing it. They wake up tired, lose interest in things they once loved, feel mentally exhausted all the time, yet continue pretending everything is under control. Because somewhere deep inside, they believe they must always stay strong. But real strength is not emotional silence. Real strength is being honest enough to admit when you're struggling. Unfortunately, many people fear vulnerability because vulnerability gives others the power to hurt them. Maybe someone once laughed at their emotions. Maybe they trusted the wrong person. Maybe every time they opened up, they felt ignored. So now they protect themselves by hiding everything. And honestly, some people become so emotionally guarded that even when someone genuinely cares about them, they still struggle to open up. Not because they want attention, not because they're dramatic, but because trust no longer feels natural to them. Their mind constantly tells them, don't say too much. Don't let people know. Handle it alone. And slowly, isolation becomes a habit. One of the most painful things about emotional pain is that it's invisible. If someone breaks a bone, everyone notices immediately. But when someone is mentally exhausted, emotionally broken, or silently depressed, the world often sees nothing. That's why silent suffering is so dangerous. A person can smile daily, go to work, talk normally, post happy pictures, and still feel completely lost inside. And sometimes the people who check on everyone else are secretly hoping someone will finally ask them, "Are you really okay?" Not the casual version, not the automatic version people ask while expecting a quick yes, but a real question, asked with genuine care. Because deep down, many emotionally exhausted people don't actually want to hide forever. They just want to feel safe enough to be honest. Safe enough to say, "No, I'm not okay." And maybe the biggest lesson here is this: you never truly know what someone is carrying inside. The quiet person, the strong person, the funny person, the person who always says, "I'm fine." Some people have mastered the art of suffering silently. So the next time someone tells you they're fine, pay attention to the small things, their tone, their energy, the sadness hidden behind their smile. Because sometimes people don't need advice. Sometimes they don't need solutions. Sometimes they just need someone who notices their pain without forcing them to beg for help. And if you are someone who constantly says, "I'm fine," while hiding everything inside, remember this: you do not have to carry every emotional burden alone. Being vulnerable does not make you weak. Crying does not make you broken. Asking for help does not make you a burden. You are human. And humans were never meant to suffer in silence forever. Sometimes healing begins the moment you stop pretending that everything is okay.